Hey guys, so I'm here with Eric Teason. Did I say it right? Teson?
Teson.
Teson.
Yep.
Like Dijon, but Teson?
Like the tea is on the stove. Tea's on.
Teson. Eric Teason, right?
That's very good.
All right. Now of Habitat Flats Kennels.
Habitat Flats Kennels.
Good deal. How long has that been official now?
Since February 1st.
February 1st. So good. This is a second trip here. The last time I was here, we did a podcast with Jason, and he alluded to big changes that they were super excited about coming down the pipeline, and this is it. Eric's here. He's brought some of his people with him. Clients followed him. He's got some of the dogs. He's picked up dogs, and they are really. I mean, I don't know how many decoys there's out there today when we was training, but they really set up hey, we're going to get back to the basics of gun dog training, and we're going to produce some great dogs, family companion pets, hunting dogs, guide dogs for people that people are going to want. So, Eric. Good to be here.
I guess I'll just touch on that a little bit. I mean, that's the whole idea coming over here is to really take the hunt test dog and come back to the hunting community and just combine it. You know, great guys on the hunting side of it, the guidance side of it, and we had the hunt test side covered, so we just made the merger, and it's working.
Right. Well, give us a little bit of your background. You know, you was born, you were there, then you come. So how did all this start? I mean, I know your history a good bit, but just kind of lay, school, what you did after that, and then how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, I'm a home state kid, born and raised right here in Missouri. Definitely did the military thing where I moved all around, Camp Pendleton, California, Aberdeen, Maryland, Pensacola, Florida. So I kind of got a little bit of everywhere, and Missouri's my home, so I come back home, and long story short, I had a heart attack, and laying flat on my back, I decided it wasn't real fun doing the job that I had. So at that time, Chris Jalmy called me and asked me if I wanted a job, so I basically packed my bags overnight and took off.
Really?
So,
where were you working at?
I was a tree trimmer for the power company, so
really?
I was literally swinging over the power lines, cutting limbs off them, so it was a pretty high, stressful job.
I imagine so.
Yeah. So did that, moved out to Chris's. So I've lived everywhere, you know what I mean? I lived both coast, middle of the United States on one end in the middle, and then Missouri on this other side. So kind of been all over the United States, but worked out with Chris for quite a while, moved back to Missouri. Had some plans. I really was going to just take up amateur dog training to kind of moved back for family health purposes, and ended up back here. And I mean, my phone kept on ringing, and people kept on asking me to train dogs. And I talked to Chris and Chris, both the Chris's, and asked for their advice. And they said, "Hey, run with it." So opened up Show Me Retrievers and did that for quite a few years.
When was that?
When was that?
Yeah.
Boy, I'm terrible with dates. I'd say 2000.
So it's 2025 now.
Yeah, probably 2019, 2020.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So did that, ran Show Me Retrievers for quite a while. Great success, when Jason talked to me about coming over here and there, and finally made it happen this year. So
yeah.
That's kind of the big story short.
Yeah. So outside of business-wise, what was the excitement to you had started your own kennel, but then you had the opportunity to come take over, their dream that they've had as, the owners of Habitat Flats. So what was kind of like the excitement, the factor, hey, what did you envision why you would do that?
Whew, boy, I asked myself that question a lot. Passion, I guess, and the challenge.
Yeah.
I mean, being a military guy, you get this, man. Show Me Retrievers is doing great. It kind of, I'm not going to say we hit our max, but we were there. We were doing it. And Jason's passion for this place, I mean, it bled over into me, I mean, when he talked to me, it's the same passion I have for dogs. So it's hard to talk about, but or describe, but it's just something I felt from him. And it's a little bit about coming over here and making it work, when it hasn't been successful, bring what I got over here and be surrounded by a lot of more successful people. So it's the whole thing. It's just a little bit of everything here and there, make something like this attractive. And finally I said, heck, let's try it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good deal. So, when all this is coming out, when this kennel first started, I did a podcast with Ira, and they was talking about their vision.
Yeah.
Like, hey, the buildings are being built.
Right.
This is our goal, and that was during COVID. I was at the border, and then I was at NWTF a couple years ago, not this past one, but the one prior, and the booth set up, and Jason was there working. I was like, hey, go talk to Jason. So I went and talked to him. That's when Jason and I met, and he's like, hey, you got Ava. I was like, I do own Ava. He's like, I have a problem. I love chocolates. I said, we got the same problem, And then we started that conversation. I was like, hey, I want to come film. He's like, yeah. He said, let's work it out. So when I come here, he's like, hey, things we got big things coming, but let's go ahead and come and show the facility. And we have just built a new lodge. And then with him, all the owners have their passions of, Habitat Flat owners, and it all is duck hunting. But he is probably, to me, the dog passion one, at least the professional dog passion one, is hunt test and litter and follows the bloodlines and just researches his nose and, as a judge in the past. And so like he's invested a lot of his time in the dog community. Well, all the guys, they're all dog guys, but I feel like he's really one of the driving factors in the kennel side. And he just has a passion for it and wants the genealogy. And, well, I know this one's daddy. I seen the litter out of this one, and he can tell you a lot of stuff. And so that was a lot of our conversation we had, and I was excited to come back. We filmed all day today, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to film tomorrow before I cut out. But the program y'all are intermingling together, I feel like it's going to just turn out a really cool product for people. And you can even see now, like you showed me some of the dogs that you've gotten back, or some of the dogs that had you just now got and you've been tweaking and doing stuff with, and not necessarily bringing them down a level, but making the process a little simpler for them, overexpose them to things, the decoys, the gun dog stuff and that stuff, and you can really see that they're kind of bringing it in together a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely the passion on both sides, and then you get the let me fix that real quick.
No, you're good.
And you get the guys that want these great hunting dogs, and then you get these guys that want these great competition dogs. There's some middle ground in there, you know what I mean? You can have both. I referred to Ammo multiple times today. He's been my personal hunting dog, a guide dog, and passed 10 grands and 4 Master Nationals, and I think he went 13 nationals straight, and hunted every season in between. There are those dogs. There's opportunity for those dogs. It's just where my passion is, and it's where Ira's a big, and Tony are big gun dog guys.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, let's have these guys. Let's have these great gun dogs. Heck, we've seen enough master dogs that come out here and they can't be great gun dogs. It's just combining all that and wrapping up in one and making those type of dogs.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people want the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about it a little bit at the leaning against the Ranger earlier, and we'll bring it up here in a minute, but you can have, or I want you to elaborate on why you can still have a good dog or a puppy, I should rather say, come out of a mom and dad that are not necessarily hunt test dogs. So what other kind of situation would you want to litter out of that lot?
Oh, yeah. So you're basically saying you're looking at a pedigree, and the pedigree doesn't tell the whole story, because you have those dogs that have been successful guide dogs. Mm-hmm. We were talking about that. It goes back to the root of why we all started. We all got in this duck game. Every group I get in, I ask this question: why did we start this? And it is literally to have a retriever go get our ducks. And somewhere along the way, we lose that idea. It's got to be from this lineage, or it's got to be from this level of dog, which I'm a fan of. Don't get me wrong. I love my Grand Champions. But yeah, you have great dogs that will never ever run a hunt test competition that are great guide dogs. And the opposite, you have great competition dogs that will never pick up real ducks, because that's what they're for, Yeah. So, but going back to where you were leading to is, you can take some of these great dogs that pick up ducks for all these guides. Let's say Habitat Flats. Traeger. Traeger sits on the opposite end of the blind as Tony with Mark Bloss. You don't hear about him, you don't see him, and he's out there just being a workhorse. Those dogs. We have in training now. We will hunt test those dogs, but up until this point, they haven't been tested and their skills haven't been put on the line on the hunt test side. They've just showed that ability to be great gun dogs on the hunting side, which is why we all started doing this, pick up ducks.
Yeah, so you said it twice now, great guide dogs. What is a great guide dog?
boy, go get their guides and ask them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? That's what makes a great dog for you and what makes a great dog for me is totally different.
Okay.
I talk about this all the time. I want a dog that has a little more motor than most people want to handle.
Yeah.
That dog in someone else's hands is an annoying dog. Hey, it does this, it does this. They'll tell you all the things that dog does wrong because it's doing it at 100 mile an hour. You know what I mean? And that guy might like to be hunting with a dog that's doing 30 mile an hour. You know, it's just calm, collected. That's just personally not what makes a great dog to me. But the next guide, I mean, that guide is looking for a dog that's sitting down, it's quiet, it's well-mannered in the blind, and it's proficient at its job. It doesn't flare ducks, big one, you know, by moving or by whining, barking, all that stuff. The ducks fall down in the decoys, and they can go pick them up. When we talk about meat dogs in the hunting world, a lot of those dogs are just what I described. They just go out in the decoys and they pick it up. They don't run blinds. They don't do all this fancy stuff that we can do with our hunt test dogs. But the ability that they have is that they can sit there quietly. Not saying our hunt test dogs can't, but that's what makes them great meat dogs to their owners, you know. So to bring the hunt test side over to the guiding world or the hunting side, which that's what we're meant to do, you know. We're supposed to test these dogs to a standard that we can also hunt with. So that's kind of my envision of coming over here, you know, is taking and putting, you know, letting Tony and Ira and all these guys around this place hunt with grand champions. I mean, what better dog to put in the blind with those guys than the best of the best?
Yeah.
And even taking the dogs that they are out there hunting with now that really never were thought of being as, you know, future grand champions and stuff like that, and training those dogs to that level so they can continue on their lineage. And get the hunt test side of it in there.
And I mean those dogs, and yeah, I think about the mental game they play, because a lot of them will know what the duck's going to do before the duck does, right?
Oh, you got that.
They know that, hey, in this water, at this current, at this wind, the duck may drop here, but it's going to end up over there.
Yeah.
So they'll what I've seen, a good seasoned hunting dog or even guide dog pre-thinks, because they've seen the ducks do it over and over and over and over again. That, hey, they're there to pick up all the birds as quickly as efficiently as they can and get back to you so they can keep doing it over and over.
Yeah.
And they use their brain a lot. They figure stuff out on the fly a lot quicker, it seems like.
You got it. Yeah. I mean, I hunted the North Platte River for a long time. I mean, it is the exact same scenario. Dogs do go out there and pick up marks, but there's a lot of blind work, you know, running the North Platte because the birds are moving on the water so fast, you know. But you get that dog, like what you're talking about, that gets that exposure, that experience. A bird falls down here. Well, they know that bird's going to end up over here after it pops up out of a little sandbar or something. So that dog just naturally goes here. That takes experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what's fun. That's what makes this whole entire dog deal awesome. You know, you train these dogs up and they become great hunt test dogs, and then they go and apply that to the field and come up with scenarios like that. You know, that makes great dogs.
And that type of experience, it's hard to train on a flat field, right, or even a contoured field without doing live flyers, practice tests, preserve hunts like that. I mean, you just need to get out there and get dirty and get it done.
Absolutely.
To learn that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we talk about that and back up and punt. A lot of those dogs, I mean, they start off either in Canada, early till season, you know, come October, and then they run through snow goose through, you know, March.
Yeah.
I mean, half the year they've just been hunting.
Yes.
So when are they going to take the rest of their time to go do the, well, now I got to prove myself. Well, you've been proving yourself for 6 months.
Yeah.
Now we're going to go do the other part, right?
Yeah. Isn't that funny to think about it like
It
that?
is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we said that's a good definition of a guide dog. So what is a good definition of a hunt test dog?
I mean, meet the standards. I mean, we got a standard for every level. If you can meet those standards, you're a good dog, you know. Same thing, not everybody is going to go out there and handle a dog at the line or understand how a dog works out in the field as well as the next guy. So maybe a good dog to a guy down the road is a dog that's a lot more independent when that's not necessarily what I want. I want a dog that's more of a team player because I can help it do some of those things, Then you get that independent dog. We've all seen it. Dog whips around at heel, guy snatches the bird and calls its name, and it just runs out there. It's not lined up. It doesn't know where it's going. Well, we don't know where it's going because it's not lined up. And the dog just runs out there and does it. That's a great dog to that guy. That dog would drive me nuts. You know, hey, come here. Let's take a good line. But a hunt test dog is a lot easier. There's a standard to be met. There's no set standard as a guide dog or a hunting dog that you need to meet. The standard is go pick up my bird.
Yeah.
How any way you can. So it's a little blurrier over on the hunting side than it is on the hunt test side.
But I can see it as some of the basics. You still want them quiet on the line.
Yeah.
You still want them breaking. You don't want them, barking. You want them to pay attention to what's going out in front of them. So I feel like there's a lot of crossover there.
Yeah, I see where you want to go here. So you take dogs on both sides. That dog still has a job to do, whether it's to this level on the hunt test side or this level on the hunting side. But the basics are still the same. Sit in the blind, be quiet, don't flare birds, go when I tell you to. If you need help, turn around and let me help you. So all those things are required on both sides. And if you get that out of whack, that balance out of whack on either side, that's a problem dog. That's why I'm here. I fix that stuff. I deal with that stuff all the time. Not saying more so than everybody, but that's a lot of our clientele is guys shooting 250 plus birds every year. And then I'm not saying we come back and fix them, but we come back and patch holes and then progress them even farther year after year after year throughout that dog's life, which it could play two ways, getting that hunting dog and then bring it back into training. We were talking about it earlier.
I was about to say the one that we weren't so impressed with when we picked him up for hunting season, and then now you come back. I watched him run today, and it was
100%. That dog wasn't a great dog in training. We sent it away for the winter, and man, I held my breath a little bit waiting on that first phone call. Hey, this dog don't do this dog don't do that. And it wasn't the case. That dog went home. It learned that there's a whole lot more in life than just training. Hey, this is my purpose. I'm out here to pick up ducks, and this is a lot of fun. And when that dog came back the next year, he'll never have a bigger year again in his life than he had that year. I mean, he went from being a baby dog to getting some seasoning through hunting underneath him, and then he exploded the next spring and summer and fall, become a great dog to what he is now. And now it's just fine-tuning, dotting the I's and crossing the T's with a dog like that.
So how often do you see that change in dogs?
Often. Yeah. I'm a big fan of sending a dog home for its first season. I get it. If it's not able to go out and pick up your ducks, it shouldn't be out there with you. If it doesn't have the tools to do the job, that dog needs more training. But
depending on when it was born. If it's the first season, it's 9 months old, maybe it's just now 3 months in the training.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. Yeah. There's a large difference between this 9-month-old and this 9-month-old. You know what I mean? Yeah. So throw that out. It's experience and exposure and maturity. You know, those things count more than age. So there's some 9-month-olds I'm picky. I like hunting with grand champions. You know what I mean? If the dog isn't handling to an exceptional level, I'm probably not going to hunt it. But there are 9-month-olds that I've been setting the blind with, and I've been impressed with them. And then there's 9-month-old dogs I've hunted with, and I'm like, hey man, that dog should have stayed in training, or hey, that dog had no business, being here. So yeah, you can go both ways on that. But
so when you're doing all that kind of stuff, what do you tell the customers, like, hey, their first hunt, when they pick up the dog, what's your little brief you give them, like, hey, you're taking this dog for his first hunting season, this is the things I want you to pay attention to?
Yeah, I do kind of a different kind of deal on that. I try to tell everybody hold your breath a little bit, shoot 25 birds before you call me, then shoot 50 birds, then shoot 100 birds. We got some steps in there before we have freak out moments, you know what I mean? The first 25 birds in a lot of cases are a mess. It doesn't matter how great the dog is. I have been on those hunts where that dog is that exceptional dog, and like we've talked, that's where my training is geared towards, is taking out the step between training and hunting. But those first 25 birds are still hard to pick up, We all do it. We are all excited to get these dogs trained, and we pick them up from the trainer, and we go and we hunt doves with them. A dove is a terrible, terrible thing for a first hunt. I'm a hypocrite. All my dogs' first hunts are dove hunts, you know what I mean? But you got to talk about this little bitty bird. When you crumble it up, it's the size of a baseball.
No scent on it hardly.
Yeah, and we shoot it with the biggest, most pellet shell that we use all season. We shoot it with the 7.5 with more pellets, and we obliterate this little thing, and we expect this brand new young dog to run out there and pick it up in a gentle manner after we exploded it and bring it back to us. Second hunt we do with all of our dogs is a teal hunt. These little suckers flying like little bullets, and we shoot them. Everybody shoots, so that's a terrible thing. And they bounce off the water, so they're not where the dog is expecting it to go. So when you're hunting those little bitty young dogs, I mean, that's all exposure and experience the dog's going to have to learn. That's tough on them, you know what I mean? And then you go into shooting big ducks and stuff like that in regular season, which I tell everybody, a backpedaling mallard over a mojo is the best mark ever for a young dog. I mean, the mojo's got it looking there anyways. There's some movement out there. That duck comes in flapping, and you shoot it, and it goes kabloosh. I mean, dog. That's an easy mark. If we would all follow that game plan, it would be great, but that's not how the world works. You know what I mean? We're excited to get these dogs out and go dove hunting. It's 90 degrees, and we're push them to their limits in the heat on little bitty baseballs,
Oh, yeah.
So.
And you talked about, and one thing I had to learn, because you don't realize it until it just hits you one day, most of the dogs that you see that are full-time guide dogs plus Grand Hunter 2 champions, Master Qual, or whatever, play the highest level whatever game, are almost always studs, because it seems like for me, my female, once she got the titles, I was either hunting, or we was breeding, or we was training, or we was hunting, so I didn't have time to go play the big games, right, because I wanted to hunt dove season, teal season, early goose, duck season, after that. And then we get in our HRCH test or master test in between all of it, and then get some titles. Then, we'd want some puppies, and we'd breed to the grand dog or whatever. So just because you might have a HRCH SH female or something like that, just like the guide dogs, you got to look as what has that dog done its entire life. Where the stud dogs don't have to take a break for weaning pups and doing all that kind of stuff too. Yeah. That doesn't mean it doesn't detract from the quality of female that you have that you want to cross over to.
Yeah, you have a litter of puppies. I don't care if it's in hunting season. You take birds and exposure away from hunting. You miss minimum 2 weeks unless you're just solo hunting by yourself. Or if you have puppies in that time frame, you're going to lose quite a few weeks. Yeah. Then flip it over to hunt test season, you're going to miss a month of hunt test season or more if you're having puppies. So, a female is not set up the same as to have a big career as a male is. You know? So, unless you hold them back. You hold them back for a couple of years till they're 4, 5, and then you start having puppies out of them or whatnot. Then you have a little more career there. We talk about it all the time. We're dog trainers, but we're career managers for a lot of these dogs, whether it's, hey, dog's ready to go hunting. Hey, it needs to come back in training. Hey, this is the optimal time to have puppies if you're wanting it. Hey, this dog is now 6, 7 years old. If you're starting to think about wanting a puppy out of the female, you better do it now because you're kind of ending your last little bit of doing it safely, So that's part of managing a dog's career as well as just training the dog. You take these upper level dogs that are what we call national level dogs, and it's a management cycle. Hey, this dog needs to be back at this time of the year. There goes snow goose season. It drives me insane. We're trying to get these dogs prepped for the Grand, and my clients are still snow goose hunting them. I'm like, man, I need that dog back. And they're like, no. That's why we train the dog is so we can pick up these birds. Okay, understand. You know what I mean? And then same thing in the fall. You get that dove season, that teal season that backs up to the Grand and the Master National. You lose some of that space. So it's you can males have a little bit better careers than females just because of what you talked about. But it can go both ways. It just depends on when you start doing that. But the career management of a male or a female comes into play. It depends on what your goal is too. Not everybody needs a grand champion. Not everybody needs a master hunter. You know what I mean? So
not everybody needs to breed puppies. Not everybody
Amen
needs
to that. Yeah.
I mean, well, I get it. And I enjoy it. My kids enjoy it. We enjoy the weapon. We enjoy the whole process. I get it. Anything happen, there is some sad points to it, right? And what I really enjoy is, like Ava's oldest litter now is about to be 5, and she's had 4 litters. She's done. She's retired. She's fixed, and we still hunt her. In fact, Matt and I hunted her on the hardest day of hunting season this year, 11 degrees, snow, ice, everything, and she's just tearing it up. But when you start getting no different dog training, all the pictures, the photos, laying in bed with their kids, then going on their first duck hunts, Ava's got a puppy that's in 2 books, sponsored by Mossy Oak and some friends of ours, the Burkhalters, and then in magazines. It's just, you expand that community, and if you're a dog person, then you like other dog people in the similar communities like that, and it just connects you, and you do fun stuff like that. And so, to me, that's part of the reward and fun, and really, even the money you do sell with puppies, you're really just trying to pay yourself back for all the money you've initiated with the dog, right? And it's not if you're just doing that as a hobby for your own dog, it's not a money-making scheme or business. You got 15, 20 grand in this dog before you even breed it. Now you got the breeding fees, if you got one that's been in training for 2 years and tested and that kind of stuff, and then breeding fees. So you're really just trying to, hey, this ain't a money-maker deal. We're just really going to be a net zero.
Right.
And then, well, I know that maybe 2 more litters will be done, and I can get one out of that litter to keep for myself because I really like it. And we're nostalgic. We are nostalgic when it comes to dogs.
100%.
We really are. We're like, man, I had a Grady dog one time. I'd love to have another Grady dog out of that by that female. Well, that female's got 1 litter left coming. Oh, whatever it costs, I'll take. Because we're nostalgic. We find what we like. Whether it has the right curl in the hair, the right eye color. We like how it did this one marker bird. We just want to replicate that or get as close to it as much as we can. And so there's a big nostalgia factor in that. And like me, I kept one out of the last litter. And as you're doing that kind of stuff, and as you do this a little longer, like I'm to the point now, like Ava, like she's semi-retired. I still hunt her. Then I got a 2.5-year-old, and I got a 1.5-year-old, and I got a 4-month-old and 3-month-old, right? So now I can be a little more flexible in this. I can hunt this dog right now. This dog can go run. Or this dog needs to go to this hunt test. I can hunt. You get a little more flexibility in that kind of role when you do that. But not everybody can do that. Not everybody can have 4 or 5 labs out there. And I can't have 4 or 5 labs in training at one time. 100% not.
Yeah.
But I can manage to have one that's 4 or 5, 6 years old. Maybe the training world's done, and now we're just hunting. And then I can go ahead and kind of plan that next one in there, right? And maybe there's some crossover where we still hunt both of them together for a little bit. And as they fade away, that's kind of my plan right now. Yeah. Matt and I, my camera guy behind the camera here, was talking about it. Like, as I see that, like Ava had an injury. Well, I had a dog that could hunt, So I went ahead and pulled her out of training a month early and was like, I'm not worried about hunt tests for her this year. Yeah. We'll hunt. She got a good experience. And then when Ava's injury healed up, put her back in, swapped out, but she got birds early. And then depending on when they're born, I had one that was, didn't turn 6 months old till the opening weekend of duck season. I'm not worried about duck hunting that dog this year, Right. We'll worry about her next year and do that kind of stuff. And then, like you're saying, well, dove season. Well, I'll take the season dog now for dove hunt. And then youth hunt, I'll take the young dog on youth hunt, right? I ain't got to worry about my gun. I take the kids and let them shoot all the birds. And then have the dad there for safety for the kids. And all I do is run the dog type deal, expose that way.
Yeah, that's man, I don't utilize that well enough. That's pretty good. I do my handlers in youth season. Yeah.
I do it. So especially if you got kids that you can trust, they're like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And just like anything we do in the military, hey, we want a controlled situation, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's facing the same way. There's no chance we're going to start crossfire or anything like that, right? So 2 or 3 dads, y'all there. Right. So 3 kids, 3 dads or moms or whoever, right? Hey, y'all make sure the kids don't shoot each other. I'm going to come off the side and I'm just going to work the dog.
Yeah. Yep.
And on good youth hunts, because usually there's a lot of birds there on typically in youth hunts. So every kid's going to shoot 2, 3, 4.
They work easy. They work close. Yeah.
And not only that, but you're gonna miss a lot of birds.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a lot of shots fired with no birds dropping. So the dog's thinking, all right, so what am I doing? So not every time a gun fires, the dog gonna get to go, and you're gonna cripple some. For me, it's been a huge asset to utilize that.
I definitely underutilize that. I like that. I mean, there you go. I learned something, about sending my dogs out for youth season. Yeah, that puts you in a position as a handler. If you're older, you can't handle or you can't shoot, so you're handling the dog. And we're all safer when you slow down when kids are around. Hey
100%.
guys, we just shot the birds. Everybody put your guns up. Make sure they're on safe. That's a good time. The dog's still sitting there. Okay, Petey, and he gets to go, So that's instead of that rush, I tell everybody there's birds. Rushing for birds makes a lot of mistakes in us and in our hunting. We've all done it. We've all been out there picking up decoys and thinking our hunt was done, and all of a sudden those birds start flying in, and what do we all do? Run back to the blind, and then we get chaotic. Everybody's loading guns, and that's probably the unsafest place ever. So at the youth hunt, when we all slow down because we're trying to be safe for everybody, that is a good time to put a dog in the field.
It's really good exposure, and it happened out of instinct with Ava. Same thing. I did a dove hunt, her first hunt. Not a good dove. I shot one dove. Right? I did a lot of hup-ups with it, and we just played around. And then we had a youth hunt. I had 4 kids, four adults. Well, my sister was the kid I was taking, and she shot trap and skeet, as a 11, 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So gun safety, I was very aware of her skills as gun safety and shooting. So she stayed on this side of me. The dog stayed in the Vislab to the right side of me. The other kids were here, and I could clipped on the dog, I had the dog tied off and shoot. All right, we've missed a lot. That's fine. The dog's all excited and then stays and watches. And then bang, 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 birds dropping everywhere, cripples everywhere because they're just slinging. And a lot of the kids are single shotting because so there's no more shells to load. All right, all the guns up, unclipped dog, and then we go to work. And the kids like seeing the dog stuff.
Great
and
situation.
Then you start it all over again and just do it all day over.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And I try to utilize that as much as I can. But and then going back to the dog breed, because I'm kind of like Jason, I get excited about puppies and breeding and genetics, and I just enjoy it. Hey, let's wonder what this, if we cross these two are. But you was talking about, a lot of people, guys don't want that high drive dog or too much motor dog. But even I was talking about, I want that motor dog, right?
Yeah.
But I want control of it early.
Correct.
So I don't have to, hey, whoa, right? And we was talking about today, like y'all's puppy program. So what would you say, how do y'all start off? Like, say you're getting a dog to come in for your puppy program or young dog program, going into gun dog training, and it's a high motor dog, and you want to shape that and not just let it loose. What's your program to do that, or how would you work that situation?
Boy, that goes 3 ways again. You know what I mean? If I get that dog really, really young, we have a dog in the kennel now. It's been with us since it's been 8 weeks old, so there's only so much you can do with that, but we're shaping behaviors, you know what I mean? We're getting all of that stuff under control now. Then you get my favorite dog, you get it in at 4 or 5 months old, so you're not pressured to throw that dog into a typical gun dog program. We can really ratchet down on some obedience very positively. It's just not, hey, sit, heel and stick sit or e-collar sit. We're teaching that dog. We're getting a desired behavior through positive reward. So that dog is more apt to do that, just like us. You know what I mean? If I tell you to do something and you get something positive happens, you're more likely to do that than if I say, hey, if you don't do that, you're going to get this negative correction. So if I can get that dog at 4 or 5 months old, and we start locking that stuff down through a positive idea or training method, then when we get to basic gun dog program, we can sprint. We have such good foundations, and we've taught the dog to learn in a positive manner. That dog is just a better dog throughout its entire life. I try to tell everybody this. I've never ever had a dog washout that's been through our puppy program. I mean, it is that foolproof. It is. I've never had one do it. They always have great attitudes. They always complete a gun dog program. And they become great dogs. It just depends the way you start them. Owner involvement. I try to tell everybody this, and I've mentioned this before in different, in our videos at Habitat Flats, that puppy, and we've all got that. We're excited to get that 8-week-old puppy, and then it's fun to go out and play fetch with it and see what it can do at 8 weeks old. They can only do so much, but you throw the bundle of socks and it brings it back. That's fun, and that continues because it's still new. It's still fun. That dog gets to that 4-month-old stage, and now it's being a little bit ornery. It's grabbing those socks and it's running off, or it's grabbing your little bitty soft bumper and it's running off. It's not doing the desirable things that we want it to do. So a lot of people aren't educated enough on dog training. So what happens? Outside. into the crate. You know, if you're not going to give me my behavior, you're going to get it all taken away from you. And eventually what that leads to is that dog is literally just sitting there until it's ready to come into training.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my pitch to everybody. If the new is wore off and you're not doing as good a job with this puppy of getting it out, of working it, I don't care where you're working it at, in obedience or retrieving or just taking exposure on walks, socializing it, you know what I mean? The socialization word kills me. I feel like exposure is what we're actually looking for more than we are socialization. You know, dogs socialize each other. We give dogs exposure, you know.
That's a good point.
So if you take a dog on a walk, I always call it it's a walk, same walk for 5 times. You know, you take it on a walk on a Monday, and that dog, little bitty puppy, you know, say even 4 months old, is running around at your feet. It don't get off the sidewalk. By day 5, that little dog's running in the woods, jumping over the logs. You know what I mean? It's doing all this. It looks like a little 2-stroke dirt bike running around out there.
Yeah.
And then you reset the next week, and then you do another walk. You're going to have that same, you've exposed that dog to this area, but now you've changed it to this area. Well, now that dog kind of gets a little bit more reserved because it's in a new area. And then by day 4, maybe it looks like the 2-stroke dirt bike where it's running around acting all crazy. And day 5, it's doing the same thing. And then another week goes by and you change your walk again. And now that dog is a little more loose. So you're just giving exposure to all those new environments and all those new places to get it, to realize the world's not out to get it, you know. So, but when you stop doing good at that, bring me that dog, you know what I mean? Bring me that dog at 4 months old and let me do all that stuff. I mean, we enjoy doing that stuff, you know, free shaping behaviors, luring behaviors, all that kind of stuff. And then when the dog goes into a basic gun dog program, we've taught these things, and now we're just going to back it up with pressure, e-collar pressure, ear collar, you know, ear pinch or toe hitch or anything like that on the force fetch table. But the dog's already understands the word fetch is fun. You know, you do it that way. Don't get me wrong. We do a lot of dogs at 6 months old. As soon as those adult teeth get in, we get that puppy and we start the process. You know what I mean? But we fall back, even us, we fall back into the hey, month 1 is this, month 2 is this, month 3 is this, month 4 is this. If you guys were in our obedience room today, we literally have
the whiteboard there.
The whiteboard, and those months are listed there. And the reason why I have those months listed is it is just an idea of where the dog should be or where the average dog is. Some dogs never get to the 4-month mark. You know what I mean? Some dogs are at the 4-month mark at 2 months because their owners have done such a great job with them, you know. So when I talk to one of my assistant trainers, hey, where's Fido? And, you know, look at the board, tell me where that dog falls into place. Hey, Fido's been here for 2 months. He's actually where a 3-month dog should be. Great. You know what I mean? That keep on. You know, hey, Fido on the next dog, you know, little Rudy, hey, it's at 2 months and it's been here for 3 months. Okay, what's going on? What's the issues that we need to address here? You know, what is it not having fun? Does it have a poor attitude because it got ripped off the couch? You know, some dogs are naturally inherently lazy. I mean, they don't want to go to work every day. We can't change that in a lot of dogs. You can curb it sometimes. You can find what Mother Nature put in them. You know what I mean? Live birds, pigeons, birds, hot birds, which are live birds. You know, you shoot them instead of just bumpers and stuff. Sometimes that brings some of that work ethic out of a dog. But yeah, those. You know, you go to the back to that basic gun dog program. You're hitting. Clients expect month 1 to go like this, month 2 to go like this, month 3 and month 4 of a basic gun dog program. So when we get that dog at 6 months old, we don't have, or we're pressured into hitting those milestones in those time frames. You know, the pressure is ours a little bit to be doing a quality job. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit on us, but don't get me wrong. Most dog owners that are coming into a gun dog program are educated enough to understand where their dogs need to hit those things. So let's go back to that 4-month or 5-month-old dog. That gives us the time to really shore up those little nuances, the sit, positively because the dog wants to. We're not necessarily asking the dog to sit, but we're going to reward the dog for sitting. If it runs up to me and sits down, hey, that's when a bumper comes out or something. At that point in time, maybe it's treated at first and then it goes to a bumper, and that's done at 4 and 5 months old. So by the time I roll that dog into a gun dog program, but that dog's sitting, and that dog sits because it wants to sit, because it's ready for the next thing in its life to happen. It runs up to me and it sits down like, okay, when I sit next to you, something great happens in my life. You know what I mean? So then that dog is giving me that behavior. So I'm not even asking for it in a basic gun dog program. The dog is giving me that behavior, and I can progress that dog quicker in a more positive manner and have a dog farther along at 4 months than I could have just that 4-month gun dog program. So starting at 6 months, kind of my little disclaimer in there. I try to tell everybody our gun dog program is 4 months long, but our puppy program doesn't count against those months. You know what I mean? If you bring me a dog at 4 months, those 2 months don't count against my gun dog program. My gun dog program does start when those adult teeth are in and we can start force fetching that puppy.
Yeah. It makes a lot of sense, though, to me, and something I've tried to do, and I've struggled with these two pups like you've seen today just because of I thought I was going to have to be more flexibility at work with my unit being gone, but I've actually gotten busier. So my plans, and this is what happens to a lot of people, I get these great things, my plans didn't happen like it does. But when you do all that, say your 4-month gun dog program, right? Hey, basic obedience, 1 month, on off leash, e-collar, force fetch, 2nd month, and then your steady singles, doubles, diversions, trying to be at the end of month 4. Combine it all together, plus all the exposure to the blinds with that. So that's your timeline, generally, left to right. If you've done all that work, obedience work pre-hand, maybe that first month of gun dog really just turns into e-collar and force.
100%.
And then your next 3 months is all the fun retrieving, exposure, blinds, doubles, singles. You know what? This dog whistle stop a little bit, or just, hey, it's there, right? And so you get more of the, I'm going to say, because the obedience is the foundation, it's important, yada, yada, right? But you get more of what you're actually in goal wanting the dog to do in that gun dog program. If that makes sense. Am I making sense?
100%.
You're getting more reps on the more birds being dropped, more bumpers being dropped in different scenarios, because now you don't have 2 months of obedience and e-collar and force, walking and all that stuff. Maybe you condense it. If they did good at the puppy program, maybe it should be shortened quite a bit.
Yeah. When you go out to the handling field, a 4-month gun dog program will get you into some handling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, can that dog run blinds? Most of the time not. You know what I mean? But that's a really funny transition area. Like, do I spend my time progressing this dog on the handling field, or do I leave that out because the owner doesn't want it and just concentrate on more gun dog work, But at least that prep work gets you farther into there where I can say, hey, here's little Fido, go home and do these drills with it, and you can have this dog handling in another couple months, you yourself. Or, hey, have you ever seen a dog handle? A lot of people don't even realize dogs handle, So I flip them over to season finish level setup, and they watch those dogs. They're like, well, how close is my dog to that one? And then I can go show them what they're doing at the end of that gun dog program on the handling field. They're like, whoa, let's keep on going. I didn't even know that existed. That's a better tool for what I need. And it is. A dog that can handle is immensely useful in the field.
No, even training, right? So if you've done the obedience to the puppy version and your obedience and force is shortened in the gun dog, now you can tell them your dog got on average this amount of reps.
Yes.
Right? Versus the dog that spends half a gun dog doing obedience force, their reps are that owner's really gonna need to go home and do more when they take them home, right? Because that dog needs more reps, more scenes. So if you've got more retriever time, gun dog time, that's just more reps, more things they're seeing, and they get ingrained more. And instead of all the, he'll hear, sit, and stay, which is important. You got to have it. I get it. But it's not the stuff we enjoy doing, generally.
We as dog people, as dog enthusiasts, not trainers, not hunters, but people that like dogs, well, let's go as retriever people. We are so quick to get to that retrieve. You know what I mean? We want that retrieve. We want that whole process. We want the fundamentals of retrieving tomorrow. And we forget to, the dog can't sit. I think Aiken says it best.
Crawl, walk, run.
Yeah. I can't even say it. Crawl, walk, run. So if you can't retrieve if you can't sit. You can't return if you can't retrieve. You know what I mean? So it's all 1, 2, 3, 4. It's got to happen in an order. I call it fundamentals of a retrieve. We do it out in open grass. I mean, dang near a Walmart parking lot. You know what I mean? The grass is cut so short. I don't care how good your marking ability is. I care about all this stuff first. You know,
Yeah.
Can you walk there and sit down under control with me? As a 6-month-old puppy, I don't need you to be a 9-month-old dog or a year-old dog. Can you do it as a 6-month-old? 6-month-old puppies can do it. They can walk obediently to the line, or if you've done your work, they can walk up there and get a mark, even if they're not force fetched yet. You know, you might have some other issues of bringing them back or not picking it up. But a 6-month-old dog can do that. You know, an 8-month-old dog should definitely be able to do that. Whenever that dog's, you know, going through those last 2 months of gun dog program, if you're fighting the sit, you can't train the retrieve. You know, if you're fighting the force fetch at the end of the retrieve, you can't make that dog come back, J-hook, sit down nicely, give you the bird. You know, it's all steps. And when those steps are messed up, or you didn't solidify those steps enough, it's gonna hurt you down the line.
Yeah.
Let's go to the hunt way down the line, where we're teaching this dog that has a very iffy sit. Well, that dog is a pain in the rear end in the duck blind because you can't get him to sit. So you get these classic guys that are yelling, you know, sit, sit, sit at their dog. It's like, dude, control your dog on the other end of the blind, you know what I mean, without yelling.
Yeah.
You know, you get these yellers. The louder I am, the more my dog listens. That's never the case.
No.
Let's just throw that out there. But that same dog that's not sitting is also the dog that's getting up and it's wandering out in front into the decoys when it's not supposed to. And it's also the dog that wanders through the blind. You know what I mean? So that dog quickly becomes the dog no one wants to go hunting with, when you could easily fix that just by shoring up its sit a long time ago. You know what I mean? Back to those fundamentals.
And the same thing, and then what I've seen a lot also is when you're hunting more than one dog at a time, you got the steady dog that's locked in, and you got the dog that, I mean, I've literally hunted before, and dogs tearing ties out of the ground because of what he knows what I'm talking about inside, and trying to beat the dog that you sent with ties chasing it down, you know, and then that just ruins it for everybody type deal, right?
Except for that guy that has that dog. He thinks it's okay.
He didn't think it was okay. He knew it was okay. And he's like, man, what am I going to do, you know, type deal. But so I've got 2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
While I'm answering, though, I won't actually, because Matt trained with us today. Matt's behind the camera here. Camera Matt, he trained with us today, so I actually want him to think of a question at the end to close us off with. But I've got 2, and these should be easy for you, right? The first one is the most memorable dog you've had, right? Whether it be yours or somebody you trained, right? And then tell me the most memorable dog hunting story you've got.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Both of them are easy for me. I haven't had enough great dogs in my life that have gone away. I've replaced them with the next great dog. You know, now I'm just now into that idea where I'm hunting my dog's offsprings, you know what I mean? But I'm going to throw it back on Ammo. Ammo is the dog that's been everything to me. Ammo is by far the greatest dog I've had because of everything. It's just a total package, you know, not just because of great training, but great hunting. You know, he's that dog when I was young enough and I felt like grinding, you know, like we were talking about earlier today. Today I might be hunting timber. Tomorrow I drove even farther south, and now I'm hunting rice fields, and I drove straight overnight to go hunt the North Platte. You know what I mean? I'm pulling up as the sun's coming up. So that was that dog for me. Will I ever give another dog in my lifetime that much experience? Heck no, because I don't have it in my soul no more to run that hard, you know? So Ammo's by far my most memorable dog, and he will be, we were talking about breeding and offspring and stuff. It's really hard for me to own an Ammo puppy right now because I do that classic. I'm comparing them to Ammo. You're not your daddy, you know? So I'm gonna wait a couple years before I try to replace Ammo with an Ammo puppy myself, you know. I've tried it, it didn't work. I get in that comparing game. So Ammo's probably got he has the most memorable hunt. I'm gonna flip it around a little bit and go off subject here. Glenn Dye, part of the Grand, he's sitting at a Grand telling us what a Grand Champion's supposed to be. You know, it's supposed to meet these requirements. This dog is supposed to, I'll never forget the words, this dog at the end of a hunt everybody that hunted with that dog is like, that's the best dog I've ever hunted with, you know? So that I was in, when he said that, I mean, I literally tied it back to his story, you know? So my most memorable hunt is laying 10 guys wide in the field. It's snowing on us. It's snowing on the decoys. Geese. I'd rather shoot ducks, but I hate that my most memorable story is the goose hunt. But anyways, wingtip to wingtip, they're finishing over us. We all shoot into them. And of course, you know, when you got that many guys, you're going to get a sailor, you know. So we sail one out about 400 yards. It was pretty deep. And Amel's a young dog. He's a 1.5 year old finished dog. Of course, we had all kinds of problems being a 1.5 year old finished dog. We did everything too fast. You know what I mean? That classic example, we didn't sure enough things up. But he was still a great dog. I sent him on a blind. Of course, this goose is out there walking around, so he's ready to go. He wants to go. And he runs out there, and that goose isn't crippled enough to lay there. It does the fly, hop, skip thing across the field, and Ammo is just ripping tail feathers out, you know, for 200 yards. The goose, every time it hits the ground, Ammo's, you know, biting tail feathers. It gets back in the air, and he's trying to jump for it, and they do this for another 200 yards across. And all 10 of us are standing up watching this happen, you know. And he catches this goose out of midair, and I look to my right. I'm the farthest left guy because I got the dog with me. And I look, and there are 9 grown men off their feet, fist pumping in the air that my dog had just caught this bird. It gives me chills to this day, you know what I mean? Every time I tell the story, I relive it because it was just that impressionable to me. Every one of those guys walked away from that hunt thinking that was the best dog that they have ever hunted over, not because of this great, awesome thing he did, but because of this great, awesome thing that he did. You know, I mean, it just didn't take no skill to do what he did. It just took desire. He wanted that goose as bad as we wanted that goose. And he caught it out of the air. And I mean, I look over and everybody, I mean, it was like, I took that snapshot in time. I can still see it today. Everybody fist pumping. And I mean, we, you know, high-fiving, fist bumping after he caught that goose on his way back. I mean, everybody was. So coming up, and I know I'm going to run on these grounds. Well, on these grounds, it dictates, you know, on and off points, or on and off points that you can't see. The points are too high where the dog rolls them, and you can't see that dog on the backside of that point. So if I know I'm coming up to those things, I will do on and off the points and get my dogs to understand when they come off that point to get a little fat on the backside, get back where I can see you, because those points kick my butt, especially being a short guy. I can't see over them like you tall guys can. And then going into the season, or let's go into a national, you know, like we got the Grand coming up. Now, granted, it's a good ways away, but
how old is he now?
I love the Grand. I'm a Grand guy. That check down bird means so much at the Grand. So I'm already working on check down birds. I'm working on that communication.
You gonna give me more hunts before you're done?
I literally mean easy. You know, run out there and start looking for that bird. So a lot of my training dictates by communication. I'm really, really trying to, I like intelligent dogs. We all do. And the more I can teach this dog through communication, the more I can get out of that dog when I need it to do something. You know, we were talking about, I believe me and you were talking about just easing up or easing back on a dog to change the line on that far mark today. And without even subconsciously, I was just easing up into my dogs, and I was grabbing a lot better line with a lot of the dogs just because I was just leaning into them a little bit, and that put them up on a higher line. But I'm trying to get that communication. So I love drill work, especially drill work.
I enjoyed running today.
Concept work, and my marks. So leading the Grand, I do certain things that dictate that I do well at the Grand. And then we go through hunt test season. I start running a lot of masters in May, June, and July. So then I'll start doing things that are a little more technically, you know, on and off the points, down the shores, just a little more technical aspect in my trainings. I'll ask for those concept weeks to kind of do those things. Now, as we roll into hunting season, so there's multiple seasons inside of my season of training. When we start rolling back into hunting season, man, I am in an A-frame. I'm in a John boat. I'm in a duck blind. I try to do that all the time, especially with my concepts. I like to throw those things in those hunting scenarios. But as we get into the season, I am going back, and my ideas in my training week are dictated by hunting season, you know.
I
And
got you.
one of my
Well, good
favorite
deal. So,
questions to ask
what I'll
my
do is,
clients when they
Matt's
drop
gonna
off
say a
dogs,
question real quick.
a couple of them, how many birds do you shoot a year, and how do you hunt mostly? You know, these we've talked
so
about
I'm
my
curious,
young guys that are literally flipping
you know,
dogs.
coming out
Those are the
and
hard ones.
seeing
You know what I mean?
everything we
those
see,
dogs need a little bit of
what you
everything.
did
But I
today, and
have
we'll see
those.
what you
We
do
also talked about a
tomorrow,
dog that has
right?
hunted her entire 8-year career.
A
in
little
the same
peek
hole.
into
You know, that dog needs
so
to swim
much that
through.
you do. So
You know,
I'm curious,
20
as an
dozen
amateur
decoys
trainer
and swim to the other
myself, I've
side
got
and do
one
that
dog,
all
and I'm
day,
thinking
every
about
day. So
how I want to work
as
with
I
my
get to
dog and
hunting
what I want to
season,
work
I
on.
try to focus
You're
on
working a
those
bunch of
things
dogs,
for
and
those
you're
particular dogs,
running them
or as
all
a
through
whole.
one big
You know what I
setup.
mean? Just to
How
make
do
them
you
better hunting dogs,
plan
to kind of get rid of that
what you're going
that
to
step
do if
into
you're
hunting that
thinking about a
I
week,
like
you're
to talk
thinking about a
a lot.
month?
Get rid of that step.
What
those
does
things
that
make
look
it
like
better.
for you
Putting
behind
a
the scenes?
shooting
You know,
a live
are you
mallard
thinking
over our
that out
heads and it falls
a couple
within
days
10
ahead
feet
of time,
us.
or
I
do you
mean,
already know what you're going
we
to
don't
do in
ever
2
train for
weeks?
that. You know, that's a hunting situation.
Are there certain
Why don't we train for that?
goals
Because we
that
all
you're
feel like
having
that's
that
a
you're wanting
wasted
to push
mark.
these dogs
But
through?
let's go
What
back
does
to
that
the
look
basics.
like
The
behind
dog
the
that can
scenes?
the meat dog that can sit there through that and not be crazy is better than the dog that's so highly bred. It go, yee! You know what I mean? Because it landed 15 feet in front of us. So my training, what I do in a week, and as an amateur, what I would do is come up with an idea, and I'm not saying perfect it, just work on it. You know, just the crawl, walk, run thing. You can't go shoot hoops if you can't dribble to the basket. You can't get to the basket if you can't dribble and pass. So you better work on those things before you work on shooting. Same thing, you know, you want to be able to run past scenario we talked about today, that dead bird in the decoys to get to the crippled bird that's out. You know, experienced hunting dogs are really good at running poison birds because they don't bite into that thing because they naturally select that bird because there's more fun in that bird. So anyways, where you just gotta understand an idea, stick with that idea and train on it for a while, and then switch, come back to it later, and see. I'm not saying proof it, but as I go on throughout Monday through Friday, I am trying to proof it a little bit, just get a little bit better at it, at that skill. You know what I mean? So some skills are useless. Some skills you need to work on all the time. You know, I love check down birds. I love running through an old fall. I love, you know, throwing a bird on one side and squeezing my dogs on a blind. I mean, tight to the backside of it. You know, those are all things that I'm trying to work on. And you can work on them in different styles. You know, the AKC, UKC hunting scenarios, and you can do it differently inside of different setups. So, I mean, one day you can do a KRD drill and then flip it around and, you know, and run a blind off the back of every one of those. And then you can run therapy marks that are just run out there and go get a mark. And the whole setup is running the blind on the backside again. So you went through marks that were intertwined and had something to do with each other and blinds on the backsides to therapy marks. It's just run out there and get them because it's easy, building that confidence, and then running blinds on the backside. So you're sticking with that same idea, just in different ways. So long answer, but it's a great question. I love that question because of the way that my head works. I like to add 1 plus 2 equals 3. You know what I mean? So I just that works really well with my head when I have an end goal. I want to make my dogs better at checkdowns. So I'm going to work on it for 5 straight days instead of 1 day a week. Yeah. You know what I mean? Or 2 days a month. You know, I just don't feel like dogs learn very well like that. You're not going to become proficient at a skill, you or I, and neither is a dog if you don't practice that skill.
No different than us, like when we was learning, you know, range days, we learned to shoot, right? We didn't go to the range one day and then next day, a week later, the next day, a week later. Yeah. I mean, it's a month of being on the range, and you learn every little detail all the way out to the 500, you know, quad walk run, but you learn that whole concept, and then, all right, that's good. Then you learn the next phase, and you'll come back and sprinkle in the old stuff, right? And you'll still check on learning, check on that, but you do those concepts in blocks. Yeah. You know, to get it going.
Boy, you're throwing my mind all the places. Did you literally have to sit down and point your rifle at that dumb barrel with all them little targets on?
Oh, yeah, dude, the transition.
Oh, my goodness, what a terrible activity. I mean, but that's the basics, you know what I mean? You're just working on positioning, but you're literally... You have no shells, no ammo, and you're pointed at forever at this dumb little barrel. That gave me flashbacks.
We do one drill, so we was learning urban ops, right? So you're talking, a lot of people would think of like SWAT stuff at close quarter combat. It's a lot of stuff you see in the movie, everything's cool, right? And moving, people don't realize how much training it takes for you and 5 guys to move as a team. That's months and months and months and months training, right?
Years.
And I'm just talking about each of y'all individually being trained and trying to come together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're spending time together. But I mean, like, I remember one day we left the barracks. We marched like 5 miles to a training site. We were going to start urban training. And I'm all excited, here we go. This is going to be the cool infantry, kick door, movie, you know, that kind of stuff. And they literally marched us all the way out there for hours, stopped, we get out there, and they formed us all up, dress, expand us out. And all day long, all we did was go up, safety off, down, safety on, up, safety off, down, until your shoulders are shaking, right? And then you got 30 minutes each MRE, and then you go back in, down, safety up, down, safety off, on, you know?
Yeah.
And that's all we did all day long. And then another 3 hours marching back. And the next day they marched us back to the same spot.
Do it again.
Well, we did start off with that, and then it was walk, you know?
Yep.
So over the next month, by the end of the month, we were stacking on walls, clearing rooms, you know, that kind of stuff as a team. But it literally went from before there was a wall, they would draw a line in the dirt. Get on the dirt. Get on the wall. You know, this is a wall. All right. You walk forward. You walk here. So similar, you train on it till you become proficient at it, or we could at least go back. So that was a group of concept. If we'd have done that one day and 3 weeks later did the next day of that, and then 3 weeks later did the next day of that, you don't have that muscle memory or even trigger firing to say your brain's hitting all that. Today, I haven't done that kind of real world stuff in years.
Yeah.
And the other day, some guys were like, let's just see if you can still clear through, dude. And it just, and I'm not as quick at it or as smooth, but kind of like that old hunting dog. Up, bang, bang, down, click, bang, bang, click, down. And it's because it's just, I'm still firing off on all that stuff.
Military does that for fatigue. You know, they give you fatigue, and then you get muscle memory faster when you have fatigue to do all that stuff. I am blown away. I almost couldn't listen to your conversation because I didn't even know the Army did stuff like that.
Hey, listen. When y'all are not eating crayons, we got to come save y'all. Hey, while we're on the subject, the number 1 most amphibious assault on record, who was it that did that? I can't remember.
I didn't know assault went with the Army.
I do have one more follow-up question to his, though, that we talked about that. Because it's interesting where y'all are at here in Missouri. Y'all can run hunt tests East Coast, West Coast, left or right, right? Do you do different training based off terrain? Because, you know, West Coast is going to be the flat, the little cedar bushes, that kind of stuff. East, you're going to have a lot of the floating marsh water. Do you ever try to go somewhere a little early to try to get the dogs used to what that's going to be like? Or you just try to train as best you can and let them see it there?
Absolutely. I think as region-wise on places we run, I feel like I have some of the most expansive stuff in the country.
Yeah.
I literally go from Bemidji down to the Gulf of America, now that we call it that, in a hunt test season. And I don't go east as far as most people do. But I mean, I'll get out to Music City, HRC, and then I'll go all the way out to Jobman's. I used to run Salt Lake City, you know, now that's when I was out at Jobman's. But I don't mind going on to South Dakota, you know. I mean, I will go big. And you are right. It is fun. To me, it's fun to see my Missouri dogs go out there and, you know, the Colorado and run because, I mean, they'll get fatigued because of the elevation. Yeah. It's mind-blowing. And then go back out west and you run on the Sage, which we were talking about today, and then go to like Bemidji or anywhere in Minnesota. And I mean, we have cattails. They have bulrushes. I mean, there's a distinctive difference. I mean, our cattails are little. Their bulrushes are a wall, you know. So, and their lily pads up there are crazy. You know, you don't train in lily pads and that one lily pad flips over. We've all seen it and shows that little bitty white flip and every dog, you know. So, I try to do that more than train for it here or try to recreate it here. I try to go there and get some time in there. Yeah. I mean, that's all why we all pre-grand or pre-national train together too, to get in the area. Jobman, I mean, he's treeless out there. So when you start throwing marks up against trees or through trees, I mean, it's something he worries about, you know. And then, you're talking about him or Aiken. I mean, those guys, when we run in the hills, I mean, they make sure that they try to get some of that in, you know. So, and we have that same issue when you take a dog and from Missouri, and we are lucky to have a lot of rolling hills, a lot of diverse terrain that's not flat. And I go out to Chris is in run, Western Nebraska, those big giant alfalfa fields scare me because they throw that mark and it can be 50 yards or it could be 250 yards. It just bloop, it's there.
Yeah.
And you don't know, there's nothing to judge it off of because there's just empty space, you know. And then, you know, you swing to the right or swing to the left, and now you start getting, you know, a 50 and a 250 and a 75. Well, you don't know if that's, I mean, to the dog's level down there next to that, you know, alfalfa or whatnot, or whatever you're running. It's deceiving, you know.
Yeah.
So when I go out there, I just start throwing marks. That's all I can say. When I get out there, just give me marks because I want my dogs to start getting that depth perception out there on that big flat open country. So yeah, definitely.
It makes sense. I don't know why I thought about it because you're sitting here thinking like where I'm at, you know, I don't know if you've ever done like Jones Valley or Huntsville or they've seen anything like that. You know, we all got that floating marsh grass.
Yep.
We got, you know, the humidity is a big deal where I'm at for the dogs in the hunting season. So, I mean, I've always run my dogs in similar, you know, Grenada or whatever, southeast, so they see the similar amount of terrain. Now, it may be, you know, pines, it may be spruce trees, you know, but it's similar. A lot of cattle pond, you know, training for, you know, HR and SH level type stuff. And then we try to expand to tech ponds or sloughs for the senior stuff or master and finish stuff. But it's still all the same terrain. And I was thinking about, you brought up one place I can remember, like if I went and run in, you know, Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
I mean, my dogs ain't never seen nothing like that.
Sage.
You know, I would, you know, how are they going to handle something like that and the new smells, new scents, new stuff, and probably the same thing for hunting, you know, dogs that do the similar things. But I was just curious. And I know, you know, a lot of the trainers get together for the Grand and Nationals, but for those of y'all who are kind of central and can kind of run left or right of the, you know, atmosphere really in the terrains, do you do that even on just regular test, you know, or just try to, hey, we ain't been out west in a while. Let me call my buddies. Let me go out there for a week just to give the dogs a different taste, even though it may not be a test coming up, just something different. And then, hey, let me go down to Alabama, or I mean, Arkansas is pretty flat if you're in the right spots. I mean, just seeing stuff, and so I just caught my
as
attention.
A trainer talking about going, hey man, let me come out there because I'm, you know, need to practice out there or whatever, train my dogs out there. When you go somewhere, 99% of the time, everybody puts you on their best. They put you on their best water. You know what I mean? So there's an advantage of saying, hey, Jalman, I'm coming out there. Or, hey, Rhett, I'm coming out there. Because most of the time, you go to their best. You know what I mean? They're trying to put you on their best water they're most proud of, which is a great, I mean, you go out there and you throw your dogs into something, you know, new points, new down the shores, new channels, you know what I mean? So it's kind of not only to get in a new terrain, but, boy, you get in some good training grounds doing stuff like that, bouncing around like that.
It makes sense. So, and that's why, man, that's good to have a good network, even as amateurs or pros or whatever, because not only you can share knowledge, but you can share access, right? We can only train on so, but even though you work for Habitat Flats and y'all have great assets, great kills, the dogs can only see so much, and then you can bounce around and do something else. So it's pretty neat. But I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate it. Ready to see what we're going to do tomorrow.
Yeah, appreciate this.
And guys, we'll catch y'all next time.